Breaking tonight, new polls ahead of tomorrow night's first Republican presidential debate show a significant number of voters are very focused on what these candidates are going to say about one issue: immigration. In a moment, we will be joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Jose Antonio Vargas, who came out as an illegal immigrant himself. But first, we begin with Ann Coulter, an attorney and author of Adios, America, the left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole. And it's always fun to see you. Okay, so this is big for you. This issue was obviously going to get attention at any presidential debate, but then we saw Kate Steinle murdered, and we saw Donald Trump come under fire for his comments about immigration. What specifically are you going to be looking for tomorrow night?
Well, I think people should be looking for, well, for one thing, every other candidate on stage ought to be thanking Donald Trump, because otherwise it would have been, me and a few other political obsessive watching. Now you're going to have ratings like, if not the Super Bowl, at least the World Series, I'd think, because Donald Trump is there. But one of the main things you look for is this nonsense about, oh, yes, of course we want to secure the border, but not a wall. Look, if they won't put a wall on the border, they're not serious about it. You have Chris Christie saying, yes, we want to secure the border, but I've seen the human spirit. A wall won't work. You have Jeb Bush saying it's an act of love. You have, various others saying, no, we're going to have drones and high technology. Drones and high technology on the border is a synonym for no wall. What's a drone going to do? So we can watch them run across the border? That's great. But, our country's being ruined, but at least we'll be entertained.
What about, because the supporters, on the other side, look at the polls like this one from CBS News, and they say the American people are behind doing something to allow people to stay. Look at this. Republican voters believe immigrants in the U.S. illegally should be allowed to stay 55%. Does that mean the Republicans are against you on this?
I don't think so. I think it's the way questions are asked. I mean, that's very personal. You don't want to feel like you're being mean to the people who are here. And yeah, a lot of them are admirable. A lot of them are good people. That shouldn't be the question for someone running to be the president of the United States. The question should be, does this help America? And I'd like to ask them, how many immigrants are enough? We already have 42 million immigrants in this country. These guys all talk about how they want to go back to the era of Reagan, and they'd be Reagan. Well, in the 80s, when Reagan was elected, 1 of every 16 people residing in America was foreign-born. Today, it's 1 in 7. 1 in 7. At what point? Okay, we have 42 million now. 100 million? 200 million? How many are enough?
But the other side says, for the 11 to 12 million who are here now, it is impractical, if not impossible, to talk about deporting them.
Well, I liked Romney's answer to that: enforce E-Verify, and they'll go home the same way they came. Everyone made fun of Mitt Romney for saying they'd self-deport. Oh, it's so impractical. And there aren't 12 million, there are at least 30 million. Okay, so let's say 30 million. How are 30 million going to self-deport? Are you going to round them up? Well, we didn't round them up to get them here. They're going to go home the same way they came.
Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
She's always entertaining. Roughly 3 years ago, Time magazine ran a cover story about the then 12 million people living in America illegally. It was written by Jose Antonio Vargas, the man you see in the center of that picture. And he is now the editor of EmergingUS.com and founder of DefineAmerica.com. He joins us tonight. Jose, good to see you again. And in that article,
Thank you, Megan,
said,
for having me.
We're here. And you wrote, we are Americans. We're here, just not legally. And here you are still with no change in status.
I actually agree with what Ann Coulter just said, which is that what do you want to do with us? Does America really want to deport? Again, Ann is trying to ask a really hard question that no presidential candidate in the Republican field have really answered with specifics. What do you want to do with us? Unfortunately, Rick Perry is not going to be in that big debate, but the state of Texas, for example, 1.7 million undocumented people in Texas. Half of the construction workers in the state of Texas are undocumented. What would Texas do without undocumented construction workers? What would California do without undocumented migrants and farmers and the workers and the day laborers that do these jobs? So again, what do you want to do with us? And by the way, you're in Ohio. You're in Ohio.
Sorry,
There's
ahead,
about
Jose.
12 million people in Ohio. There's about 12 million people in Ohio, the exact same number of undocumented immigrants in this country. Do you want to deport all of Ohio?
What do you think, what do you make of the fact, as an undocumented immigrant yourself, about the fact that Donald Trump has surged so in the polls, notwithstanding his comments, very controversial about illegal immigrants?
Well, I actually think that speaks to just how little the American public knows about the issue, at least the ones supporting Donald Trump. The facts that are not really out there when it comes to how Donald Trump talks about this issue. I mean, two things that I think is really, really crucial, right? 40% of the undocumented population in this country overstayed their visa. They didn't cross that border. We have spent since 9/11 $100 billion in border enforcement. How many more billions of dollars should we spend as a country? And by the way, Megan, you just had Marco Rubio a few minutes ago. In his book in June 2012 called The American Son, he actually wrote, and I quote this in his book, "If my kids went to sleep hungry every night and my country didn't give me an opportunity to feed them, there isn't a law, no matter how restrictive, that would prevent me from coming here." I hope, by the way, that question gets asked to Marco Rubio tomorrow night.
That's why Ann doesn't like Senator Rubio anymore, because he switched once his bill didn't get through to enforcement first. And do you think there's any candidate on this GOP stage, who's arriving tomorrow night, who you could ever get behind, Jose?
Well, look, I'm undocumented. I'm not allowed to vote. I'm neither a Republican nor a Democrat. I would really love to hear Jeb Bush and his actual plans. Again, this is the number one thing that we heard from people who follow Define American online. The question is, this is actually a question from somebody in Sacramento. How do you plan to work with John Boehner and the others in Congress who are not willing to negotiate on immigration reform so that a comprehensive bill can pass both houses? What do they actually want to do? Specifics, not talking points, not names, none of that. Specifics. We want specifics.
Tell these people to go on Facebook. We're partnering with them on this debate, and we've been asking for questions. These are great questions. Jose, thank you.
Thank you, Megan, for having me. I really appreciate it.
Always great to see you. Well, no matter how good these candidates are on the issues, history has proven that the real make-or-break moments in these debates come out of the blue. Dana Perino is next with her advice for the folks taking the stage, the things they need to do and not do to ensure success. Next.